Welcome to a video about the war between the USSR and Finland. It was an underdog story of a country of only 3.7 million facing the massive Soviet Union. With some clever tactics and a resilient people, Finland put up quite a fight. Unsurprisingly, it's called the Russo-Finnish War, aka the Winter War, aka... Okay, some context. After the separation of Poland, there was an uneasy peace between the Soviets and the Nazis, and there was no buffer state between the two. The Soviets wanted some breathing room and snatched up Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and next on the chopping block was Finland. Stalin wanted parts of Finland because if a war were to break out between the Soviets and Germany, Finland had a very close border to a major Soviet city, Leningrad. They wanted the Karelian Isthmus, a naturally defensible piece of land that the Finns built fortifications on top of. They also wanted the Finns to lease out the Hanko Peninsula and cede the Raibachi Peninsula and some islands in the Gulf of Finland. In exchange for some random land in eastern Karelia, the Finns made some counter-offers, but they were rejected. And so on November 30th, 1939, the Soviet invasion of Finland began. The main invasion was focused on the Karelian Isthmus, but the Soviets advanced along the whole border. Carl Gustaf Emil Mannerheim, a general from the Finnish Civil War, became the commander-in-chief of the Finnish army. He knew that if Finland was going to hold out, he would have to defend at the Karelian Isthmus, where he made his defenses known as the Mannerheim Line. At his command, he had around 300,000 troops, only equipped with World War I artillery and machine guns. But they did have the Suomi machine gun and Sisu. Well, you might say, hey, what's Sisu? Well, Sisu is the idea of Finnish stoic determination and resilience. While not a literal weapon, Sisu was one of the most important tools in Finland's arsenal during the war. The Soviets, for comparison, had 700,000 troops, plus tanks and aircraft. Their troops weren't veterans, though. They were only recruits from around the Leningrad area, under the command of Kirill Meretskov, who said he'd have the war over as Stalin's birthday present. It lasted much longer, however. The Finns didn't have much to their advantage, but one thing they did have was the home turf advantage and the winter. You thought Russian winters were bad? Well, welcome to Finland, baby, where the snow drifts deeper than a man, so cold you'll freeze to death before you starve. You think trucks are good in Russia? Well, skis are the main transport here. Where the Soviets took defensive positions, the Finns would isolate them with their superior mobility in groups called moti, stacked firewood in Finnish. And they'd plink away at Soviet troops walking away for firewood or to use the bathroom, etc., until there were few enough people where the assault companies could finish them off, or they all froze or starved. This would give them free ammo, guns, and wouldn't cost them very many men. While those tactics were effective, tanks were a problem for the Finns, as they didn't have any of their own to counter. They instead used bottles of kerosene and other flammable materials, and threw them at tanks hoping they'd catch on fire. We know them today as Molotov cocktails, lovingly named by the Finns after the foreign minister of Russia. But why are they called that? Because Vyacheslav Molotov, who said that the bombers passing overhead weren't dropping bombs, but instead dropping food to their troops. But secretly they did drop bombs. These were called Molotov bread baskets. And I don't know about you, but bread is kinda dry, and you need a nice drink to wash it down with. Why not a cocktail? A Molotov cocktail. So over the course of the war, help was promised to the Finns, but it was never delivered. However, volunteers from around Europe and North America came to assist them and hold back the red tide. Things were going well for a while, until the leadership was changed on the Soviet side of the war, and Semyon Timoshenko and Georgy Zhukov were given the responsibility to end the war, which was inevitable from the beginning. It just took the Soviets a while to get there. The troops were properly trained for combat in the harsh Finnish winter, and eventually the Mannerheim Line was breached in February. But they didn't stop there. By March 13th, Finland signed a peace treaty, forcing them to concede more than initially planned. Although the Finns lost the war, they were a resilient bunch, showing that they could hold their own. The Soviets took many more casualties, at least 300,000, compared to the Finnish 70,000. It was a blow to Soviet prestige and pride, and showed the Soviet army as paper tigers. This shameful display eventually had rippling effects on World War II as a whole, influencing Hitler's decision to invade the USSR in Operation Barbarossa. It also influenced Finland's decision to side with Germany in the continuation war, due to the lack of Allied support during the invasion. Personally, I really like the Winter War. While not technically part of World War II, it's one of my favorite things to learn about during this time period, and I'm glad I could learn some new things about about this slice of history.